President Trump expected to unveil a massive $1.5 trillion infrastructure plan today.
Intelligence Chairman Devin Nunes and the committee's ranking Democrat Adam Schiff butting heads over the fate of their rival memos on the Russia investigation.
We actually want the Democratic memo out. We think it's ridiculous on the face of it.
What's really going on here is the president doesn't want the public to see the underlying facts.
Here are some headlines of so-called mainstream press fawning over the sister of the dictator who murders people.
Washington Post, the Ivanka Trump of North Korea captivates people in the South at the Olympics.
A dreamer is now speaking out against Democrats, saying they don't have his back and he supports Trump.
President Trump is willing to work with Democrats, but at the end of the day, it's Democrats that don't want to work with him.
Figure skater Mirai Agasu becoming the first American woman to land a triple axel.
Wow.
That is not easy.
Hey, welcome. It is Fox and Friends for a Monday. It is also a day that you know from when you were a kid. Remember what February the 12th is? Lincoln's birthday.
It's Lincoln's birthday. Right, but we conglomerate all our presidents into one day and we sell mattresses.
And how do you think? And how would Lincoln feel about that? Wait, I don't get my own day anymore?
Yeah, he's a humble man. I saw this story on CBS this morning. On Sunday morning.
Wait, you're watching another channel?
Once in a while,
What
you know, sometimes, yeah. We only get 2, 4, and 7. We got this antenna. We watch mostly UHF in my house. So, but here's the thing. They did a story how Lincoln's cabin it is not actually Lincoln's cabin.
That's right.
It doesn't add up. It is a conglomeration of wood built in and around when he was born.
Really?
So we don't know if that cabin exists
I
yet.
heard George Washington really didn't chop down the cherry tree, too.
Don't believe
I think
he did. Because we're missing one.
I hear that Washington didn't actually throw a Bitcoin across the Potomac either.
That is true. But
and didn't have wooden teeth.
But if
hippopotamus.
But if he did throw a Bitcoin, would it even ripple? Because I can't even figure out what it is.
It would run out of Bitcoin by the time it got across.
Right, and there goes Ainsley's future.
Anyway, I know. I did invest. I did. I fell into it.
The whole Earhart empire.
Happy birthday, Abraham Lincoln. Meanwhile, let's talk about this president of the United. There's Lincoln right there.
Right.
People.
Wow. What a great adjustment.
How great.
That's
when
fantastic.
I was watching as a kid, there was
7 years ago.
They have all this ready. There was a bird nest on top of his head when we were kids, so we were, we loved it.
Right.
Anyway, let's talk about politics at the Lincoln Memorial.
I'll be darned.
But let's talk about dueling memos, because the Democratic memo is 10 pages long. The Republican memo, which looks into what the role of the dossier played, if any, in trying to unmask people like, I don't know, Carter Page. The 4-page memo went out because Devin Nunes could not believe some of the intelligence that wasn't coming forward regarding the surveillance of the Trump campaign. So that 4-page memo came out. The world changed. And then the Democrats said, we have a 10-page memo. But in it, many would argue, we haven't seen it yet, are certain time bombs that would, if went out, would expose methods and practices of the FBI and our intelligence apparatus.
Last week we were all wondering, is this thing going to be released? Is it going to be released on Friday? Because the Republican memo was released the Friday before. Well, the news this morning is it has not been released. The reason is the president says it needs redaction, significant redaction. He said significant concerns for national security and law enforcement interests.
See, and on Friday when the memo was on the president's desk for 5 days, and he goes, look, there are too many secrets there. But if I get out the Sharpie and I start redacting it, then they're going to go, oh, the president didn't want us to see that. So very cagely, the president said, hey, Department of Justice, FBI, take a look. You got problems? Anybody have a problem? Raise your hand. Everybody raise their hand. So now, according to the Democrats yesterday, they will make redactions and they will resubmit it. It could come out as early as later today. Meanwhile, we've got both sides of the story, the Republican versus the Democrat. It's Devin Nunes on what they have learned and Adam Schiff. Now, the key is Devin Nunes actually pretty much encapsulates everything that is in the 10-page Democratic memo in this soundbite.
We actually want the Democratic memo out. We think it's ridiculous on the face of it. We think it's very political about how they attack myself. They attack Chairman Gowdy. They turn Carter Page into some super secret Russian spy. They talk about how Christopher Steele is a really, really good source when we know that he lied to the FBI. So we want this out. We don't know why they're not in this weekend redacting it so that we can get it back to the White House so the president can declassify it.
The president doesn't want the public to see the underlying facts. What is revealed in our memo are quotations from the very FISA application that really demonstrate just how misleading the Republicans have been. But the president doesn't want you to see these facts from the FISA application because it completely undermines his claim of vindication.
Really? Okay, just keep in mind this. When we get through the 10-page memo, the other story is that Devin Nunes wants all 4 FISA warrants transcripts of the 4 appearances in front of the FISA court. We'd like it for the first time ever to be public. So we find out the role of the dossier, which is yet to be verified in any walks of life, what role it actually played in the judge making the decision to say, go ahead, file a Carter Page.
And speaking of 4, there were those 4 applications. According to Tom Fitton of Judicial Watch, apparently there are 4 anti-Trump dossiers floating around. We know of the one with Christopher Steele, and then we heard of the other one with Cody Shear. There are 2 others floating around out there, so no wonder so many people were talking about Russia. Russia.
Today in the Senate begins the immigration debate. Remember when Senator Mitch McConnell, he sat down with the Democrats, he says, listen, if you support all of us on the budget deal, then we will come to the Senate floor and we will open up discussion for an immigration debate. And that's actually happening today. He's fulfilling his promise.
Yeah, they call it a freewheeling debate, and it's very rare. No one is sitting there saying, this is the policy, let's debate it. It's an open vessel is the term they're using. Fill it up. And as the bipartisan, you imagine, agreement starts building, more and more senators will get behind it. And there has been some bipartisan agreement already. Along with the president's framework that he already laid out, we could have something done the old-fashioned way, through debate, which would help our debate on the couch, and then maybe through a bipartisan solution. But then again, I live at some portions of my life in an idealistic world.
A dream world, another planet. Yeah.
Rose-colored glasses.
So here's what's going forward today. There's already a group of very conservative Republican senators, and they have put forward a framework. There are their images right there. You've got Grassley, Cornyn, Tillis, David Perdue, Lankford, Cotton, Joni Ernst. What they've done, essentially, is they have come up with a Senate version of what Donald Trump has been talking about. You know he wants the $25 billion for the wall, et cetera, wants to get rid of the visa lottery system, also in-chain migration, but at a steep cost for a lot of Republicans, and that is to allow in close to 2 million dreamers. And that is the price Republicans are willing to pay to get all the stuff they want.
We are going to be interviewing a dreamer, get this, a dreamer who supports the president's plan, coming up at 6:20. Dying to hear what she says. Our bookers are great to, I mean, what he says. Bookers are great to get that guest on. I'm excited to hear that.
I also think, don't be surprised if they add in this thing where the people who are doing it right and have been online for years, trying with green cards, trying to become citizens, doing everything correct, the president might propose something where we empty that line. And who would be against that? A lot of times they're related to some people in this country, and a lot of those people who are doing it the right way. How can a Democrat say, oh, those people doing it the right way? Let's leave them on that line that never ends.
Well, the one thing about the Republican Senate proposal that we just depicted for you right there is they say, look, this is the only one that's going to pass the House and the president will sign. So, you know, there are going to be other things out there in the next week or so, but this is the one the president will sign. So ultimately, they're trying to get as many Republicans on board. They would only have 51 if they had everybody, including John McCain, who probably would not make it back for that particular vote, but they need 60.
Yeah, evidently John McCain doing a lot better. Don't be surprised in 2 weeks we're talking about a deal that they agree on. Meanwhile, let's talk about some of the headlines that are stunning and aggravating to many people here in our country and clear-thinking people, maybe even in South Korea. They are hailing Kim Jong-un's sister, who is appearing in this Olympics, 27 years old, representing North Korea. They are calling her the Ivanka Trump of these games. Here's an example. The New York Times writes this: Kim Jong-un's sister turns on the charm, taking Pence's spotlight. Reuters says North Korea judge winner of diplomatic gold at Olympics. The Washington Post, the Ivanka Trump of North Korea captivates the people in the South.
This is the dictator's sister. This is an embarrassment. That is ridiculous. She oversees propaganda for that country, the country that enslaves people, the country that starves people. We saw what happened to Otto Warmbier.
Right. Now, keep in mind, she did make headlines by appearing in the presidential box at the opening of the Olympics. That was great. That was a step forward. And she did also, that's the image I'm talking about right
Why
there.
is that great? I don't even think she should be there.
Well, because they have a unified Korea that is appearing at the Olympics.
A big show.
But here's, well, it is propaganda. It's all propaganda. The other thing is she has invited the president of South Korea to North Korea. They have not figured out whether or not he would go. But nonetheless, I mean, Newsbusters refers to her as North Korea's head of their propaganda and agitation department. And you know what? That's kind of what's happening right now.
I give Willie Geist credit of NBC. He came out and says, I can report South Koreans here are not as enthralled with Kim Jong-un as the North Korean cheerleaders as some media are back home. He's in South Korea, and he's embarrassed by some of the coverage.
Well, it is crazy.
I can understand her controlling the media in North Korea. How is this the headline in America? How is that?
Good question.
You know what? They're choosing her over President Trump. That's what they look at, and Mike Pence. Meanwhile, 11 minutes after the hour, Jillian is back. The green face paint is off. Welcome back to the studio.
Yes, the Eagles green is gone. I survived skydiving on Friday morning, so it's been a heck of a few days.
Air? When are we going to see it?
Hopefully later this week. I'll let you guys know for sure. But let's get you caught up on some of your news right now, starting with this headline. The survivors, and if he survives, prosecutors want the death penalty for the man accused of killing 2 Ohio police officers, Quentin Smith, in the hospital after being shot by police. He's accused of ambushing Westerville officers Anthony Morelli and Eric Joering. And now we know Smith wasn't even allowed to own a gun. The community remembering those fallen heroes with a prayer vigil overnight. Officer Morelli's cruiser turned into a memorial sitting outside City Hall. Counselor to the president, Kellyanne Conway, says there is no reason not to believe those accusing former White House aide Rob Porter of domestic abuse. This as the White House says Chief of Staff John Kelly's job is safe despite questions over his handling of that scandal.
I think all the stories about replacing General Kelly are mostly being fed by people who are unhappy that they've lost access to the president.
I spoke to the president last night. I told him I'd be with you today, and he said, please tell Jake that I have full faith in Chief of Staff John Kelly.
Conway setting the record straight after reports that he's on the outs. 2 women shining for America at the Winter Olympics in South Korea. Jamie Anderson earning a gold medal in the women's snowboarding slopestyle, celebrating the win by wrapping herself with an American flag. She also won gold in the same event at the Sochi Games in 2014. And figure skater Mirai Nagasu becoming the first American woman to land a triple axel in Olympic competition. Just look at that. Team USA currently tied with the Netherlands in the gold medal count with 2. Germany has 3. That's a look at your headlines, guys. A triple axel, that is so insane.
It's big.
Impressive.
All right. Meanwhile, thanks a lot, Jillian. Remember what Robert De Niro said this about President Trump.
He's a punk. He's a national disaster. He's an embarrassment to this country. I'd like to punch him in the face.
Is this a role or is that him? He's not done. His latest attack on the president and America next.
And in just a couple of hours, about 3 hours, 15 minutes, the market's going to open up after their worst week in 2 years. So what happens today? Stuart Varney is going to tell us. He told me earlier he's got the secret. It's coming up in 2 minutes. Well, all eyes in the money world on Wall Street, where in just a couple of hours, the market's set to reopen after its worst week in 2 years, point-wise.
So what can we expect, and what does it all mean for your pocketbook? Here to break it all down is host of Varney & Company on the Fox Business Network, Stuart Varney. Stuart, so economy is different. Economy's doing well.
Yes.
Stock market last week, worst week in 2 years.
All over the place.
Why if
Okay.
the economy's doing great, why would stocks?
Let me first start with this. This is Monday morning. Everybody's looking at what's going to happen this Monday morning after a couple of really bad weeks. Right at the opening bell, we'll go up on the Dow Industrials 2, maybe 300 points. That's up. Now, don't think that this is all over. Don't think that the volatility has just come to an end. I don't think it has. I think we're in for another rough ride. That doesn't mean to say there's a big sell-off. I do mean to say up and down like this. I think that's going to come back.
Ultimately, what's happening, and you've talked a little bit about this, is because the economy is getting stronger.
Right.
The Federal Reserve is more likely to raise interest rates. And they've been giving away money essentially for the last decade. So if interest rates go higher, that's why everybody's reacting this way.
That's right. You put yourself in the situation of someone in their 60s, maybe. They've got some profit in the stock market. Well, what are they going to do with their money now? There's a temptation to sell stocks because you've made a profit, lock in that profit by selling, and put that money into a dead-safe government bond that will pay you, at the moment, about 3%. That's not bad. Oh, it's not a great rate of return, but you sleep well at night. You've got no risk, and you get a tax break on the interest on a government bond.
People talk about this being the first time maybe ever we have something that adds up to a stimulus for the economy, yet record low unemployment, I should say. And they say they've never seen a combination. They've seen stimulus for a struggling economy. They've never seen stimulus, which, just to sum up our budget, for an economy that's soaring. What's going to be the reaction?
What are we doing with an economy that's growing 3% and may grow at 4%? What are we doing in that situation? Stimulating the economy even more with an infrastructure plan, tax cuts, $300 billion extra government spending, higher wages. Why are we doing that? Well, the answer is that the politicians have taken any restraint off spending and chucked a ton of money into the economy. That's the risk for the stock market. You chuck all this money at the economy, you'll get stronger growth, but you'll also get higher interest rates, which will put a limit on the stock market.
Is there a chance of this? Unbelievable growth that pays a lot of that debt off.
It will pay down some of the debt, some of it, but it won't it won't balance the books on the annual deficit. It will not do that, not even close. It will pay for some of it, but absolutely not all of it.
But Mick Mulvaney said yesterday the White House budget bends the curve down closer to balancing. We'll have to talk more about that later.
Very long term.
No kidding. All right, Stuart, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Stuart.
Thank you.
Next, it's a story that we guarantee you're not going to see anywhere else. Meet a dreamer who supports President Trump and has a tough message for Nancy Pelosi.
Plus, the juice is loose in Hollywood. O.J. Simpson just landed a new gig. More money. Glad you're up. Some quick headlines now, starting with a Fox News alert. We now know the victims of the fiery helicopter crash in the Grand Canyon that killed 3 people and injured 4 others. All 6 passengers come from the United Kingdom. The American pilot is 42-year-old Scott Booth, surviving but severely injured. It's still unclear what caused the fatal crash after taking off in Nevada. The NTSB is now investigating. And new surveillance video shows the moment a Russian plane plunges into a field. Wow. Killing all 71 on board. The Saratov airline turning into a fireball shortly after taking off from the Moscow airport. The company says the aircraft made several trips the same day with no apparent issues. Steve.
Thanks, Brian. The DACA debate taking center stage in Congress, the U.S. Senate this week, as lawmakers face a March 5th deadline to strike a deal, or at least start talking about it. The president weighing in over the weekend, tweeting, Republicans want to fix DACA far more than the Democrats do. The Dems had all 3 branches of government back in 2008, 2011, and they decided not to do anything about DACA. They only want to use it as a campaign issue. Vote Republican. Here to weigh in, Hilario Yanez, a dreamer who was brought to the United States from Mexico when he was just 1 year old. He joins us right now from Houston. Hilario, good morning to you.
Thank you for having me again.
It's great to have you. Tell us your story. Your mom was from Mexico. She came to the United States when you were 1. And then what happened?
Well, fast forward, here I am at the age of 3. I had a little sister already who was born in the U.S. My mother was pregnant, and my stepfather abandoned us, and we had no place to stay. So the only place we looked at was the Star of Hope homeless shelter in Houston. And really, that was the beginning of God's grace and, helped my mom get back on her feet. And eventually, I'm standing here today, by the grace of God.
And when you say help your mom get on her feet, she she cleaned houses. She cleaned houses
That
to
is
help
correct.
put you through school, and you wound up going to a university, and you've got a great job for a Fortune 500 company. You are the, ultimately, people would say that's the American dream, to come to this country. But your family came to the country illegally, and so you're in a kind of a, the twilight zone between the laws. You like the president's suggestion on his immigration plan to allow folks like you to stay in the country, up to 1.8 million dreamers. In exchange, he would get $25 billion for the wall, end the visa lottery, chain migration would be curtailed as well. Tell me why you like the president's plan.
Well, like I mentioned before, the president is taking leadership on this issue. He's very compassionate on this issue. He understands it. And he's taking a lot of courage. I mean, he's taking fire from, the right conservative part of the party, but he's willing to work, and to get something done. And the reason why I like it, first, it allows me to, allows me to live the American dream, and one day contribute and serve this country. And the other reasons I like it, I think it's necessary that we need border security. We need the security out there, the technology, the infrastructure. And look, in regards to funding for the wall, look, I think at the end of the day, it affects three people. Number one, it affects the Americans because drugs is flowing in. Terrorists are coming in, and we need to stop that. And also Border Patrol, it provides an extra layer of safety for them. And the last point that I want to make, it's also the undocumented people that risk their lives here. I think if you're able to see a wall or a barrier, they'll think twice about coming here. And again, and possibly save some lives, and won't have to take that risk of coming all the way over here to the U.S.
Hilario, I'm confused. You're a dreamer, and you're speaking positively about Donald Trump. I figured you would have, you'd be the kind of person who would be speaking more highly of the Democrats, like Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. They've got a different plan.
Correct. I grew up on conservative values. I grew up on, first of all, putting God in my life. Jesus Christ is my Savior. I grew up on family. I believe in prosperity. I believe in hope, working hard, and standing on your own 2 feet. And that's what the Republican, values are. And that's what I believe in. At the end of the day, I make decisions based on my values. And as far as the Democrats, I'm a little confused as what their message is. I'm a little confused as what they believe in. And so for me, it's more appealing to appeal to my values and something that aligns with those.
Hilario, you say that Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi have used the Dreamers, people like you, as political pawns. Why?
A little bit about the Democrats. Look, Trump won. That's the reality. I think, it's time to move on. I think the reason he won was because he had a great message. He had great principles, whether you agreed or disagreed. And the reality is, look, Russia was not involved with this. It was a clear win. And I think CNN needs to move on from that and really focus on the American issues. But here's the facts. Look, the Dems failed to act back in 2008, back in 2011. I think now, look, I can go all day about Democrats. I possibly could have my own show. But look, I want to focus on the American issues, on this American issue. It's not a Republican, it's not a Democrat issue, but it's an American issue. Sure. And Republicans right now have a chance to make history. And this would look great on President Trump's legacy. I mean, this is something that President Trump would be known for. It's something that Obama couldn't do, something that President Bush couldn't do, and that's get border security and also give me the chance to serve this country.
Well, there you go. Hilario Yanez joining us today from Houston. Good luck to you. Were you reluctant to come on television and talk about it because technically you are in the country illegally?
No.
Good. What was the reaction from people who saw you over the weekend on the Fox News channel?
Honestly, this goes out by the grace of God, and all the glory goes to God. But I was able to change a few people's perspectives, especially people which the media calls extreme right-wing conservatives. Look, they're not racist people. They're just very passionate people. Look, just as much as I'm passionate for the Houston Astros, they're the same exact passion they are for this country. And I understand that, and I respect that. But look, now after hearing my story, after hearing what I value, I was able to change answer's perspective, and now they, are willing to provide a path to citizenship, are agreeing for that.
Well, let's see what happens. Today, the ball is in the U.S. Senate court. Hilario Yanez.
It's all in God's hand. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right. What do you think about that? Email us, friends@foxnews.com, or tweet us, or Facebook. Meanwhile, coming up on this Monday, former CIA Director John Brennan has been a harsh critic of President Trump's. So what did he know about that dirty dossier? Dan Bongino on that and how Mr. Brennan could be in hot water coming up.
What they did is they said, look, you need to make some redactions and some technical corrections here, and we will get it out right away. Now, from that point, we've heard nothing but crickets. If they really wanted to get it out, they'd be down there all day yesterday, redacting it, getting it back over to the White House so that the public could know what's in it.
All his points, I thought that was the most relevant, because if you want something done, go do it over the weekend, and it would have been ready to go on Monday. Dan Bongino, former NYPD officer, former Secret Service agent, host of the second most popular conservative podcast in the country, The Dan Bongino Show.
Aiming for number one.
And I was going to say, the second.
Right.
Why aren't you number one? I'm just kidding.
Well,
the second's amazing.
We try harder.
Right, and almost with no promotion, you've done that. It's amazing, because it just shows how relevant your points are. In terms of this, let's just talk about why that second memo isn't out. This is playing out exactly like the president said. They were going to put this forward. It was going to be unreleasable, and then they were going to say the president's covering up. This is predictable.
It's always predictable with them, with the Democrats, and it just shows to show their devious side. I mean, listen, for as much as I disagree with the Democrats and their ideology and everything they do in this case, which has been downright evil in the whole fabrication of the Russian narrative, you almost have to respect their deviousness. They're tactically brilliant. Put information in there that they know can't get out on sources and methods, in their memo, that is. Give it to the president, knowing he can't release that memo, and then come back and say immediately, as if on cue, oh, look, the president's hiding something. I mean, it's really deranged, but this is what they do.
Well, there's a possibility that Devin Nunes' next target could be former CIA top guy John Brennan. Paul Sperry, the investigative reporter, did a report that apparently he's looking into whether or not Mr. Brennan perjured himself, because they were talking about in public testimony. He said, he was asked about, did this dossier play anything? Did that factor in? No, it didn't. Do you know who commissioned the dossier? No, even though everybody at the FBI and the DOJ apparently did. He could be in trouble.
Yeah, Steve, my sources on this are telling me John Brennan is in a world of trouble right now. And let me just walk you through a quick timeline to tell you why.
Okay.
Back in August of 2016, he gives a private briefing to Senator Harry Reid, Democrat, of course. He gives that briefing to Reid. Reid then fires off a letter to the FBI, and in that letter is information that clearly came from the dossier. Now, clearly then at that point, Brennan was aware of the dossier because he told Reid. Now, it's fascinating because in May of this year, of 2017, under oath, by the way, up on the Hill, Brennan says, oh, I didn't know who commissioned the dossier, which is amazing. Because the CIA has a central role in the verification of foreign assets and information we get from foreign assets. It is not plausibly deniable that John Brennan did not know who commissioned that dossier. He is in a world of trouble because he raised his right hand and he said the exact opposite.
And there's nobody angrier last week at Devin Nunes and John Brennan on CNN last week. He was crazed. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, you'd be crazed, too, if you find out you may be guilty of perjury because they're investigating you for lying up on Capitol Hill under oath.
What about other intelligence officials that were in those positions during President Obama and during all of this happening?
Yeah, well, Jim Clapper, of course, the ODNI head, Office of Director of National Intelligence, is knee-deep in this as well. Here's the problem, Ainsley. They can't get their story straight. When they go on TV, they say, oh, the dossier had nothing to do with it. And then you find out later on that contents of the dossier made it into the presidential daily brief onto Barack Obama's desk. What was it? Was the dossier salacious and unverified and not credible? Or was it credible enough to brief the president on and start the most significant counterintelligence investigation in U.S. history? Which story is right? They can't even figure it out.
We need to find those, get those transcripts.
So, Dan, ultimately, people like Adam Schiff, the Democrat from California, is he doing his best to keep all this from coming out, or is he just playing the loyal opposition?
Adam Schiff is a snake. He's the biggest fraud on Capitol Hill right now. Adam Schiff is doing the Democrats' dirty work in trying to cover up. Here's the problem, Steve. I don't know how to say this any more candidly. The Obama team spied on the Trump team. The liberals have married themselves to years to this facade that they're civil liberties advocates. That's gone now. That is completely gone. They will be police state advocates from this point on when the public learns the true story of the extent of the Obama team spying on the Trump team, and it will decimate the liberal brand forever. And Schiff's the one who's been sent out there to lie and deceive in order to try and save this. But they can't, because remember, guys, there are court transcripts. The Democrats can't run from this. There's no plausible deniability.
We have to see them.
It's that kind of straight talking that is going to put you #1 in the podcast world. Just saying, buddy.
Like I said, we try harder. Right?
All right. Dan Bongino, thank you very much.
I agree with you.
Thanks.
Transcripts, we need to see them. Hey, Jillian. Jillian has some more headlines for us.
Good morning to you guys, to you at home as well. Let's get you caught up on some of the headlines that we're following at this hour, starting here. In just a few hours, the Trump administration unveiling its massive 2019 budget. The president rolling out the plan, aiming to aggressively rebuild what he called America's crumbling infrastructure with a $1.5 trillion investment. The budget also includes $18 billion for the border wall. Senior officials say this is just a starting point to kick off negotiations. The former Indianapolis Colts linebacker killed by an illegal immigrant will be laid to rest today. Funeral services for Edwin Jackson will be held in his hometown of Atlanta. The 26-year-old and his Uber driver were killed in Indiana after being hit by an illegal immigrant who was drunk. Manuel Orrego Zavala has been deported from the U.S. twice before and doesn't have a driver's license. Actor Robert De Niro slamming President Trump on the world stage, and it's not the first time. Do you remember when he said this?
I'd like to punch him in the face. This is somebody that we want for president? I don't think so.
Now at the World Government Summit in Dubai, De Niro isn't just slamming our commander-in-chief, he's slamming you. He said, quote, "I am talking about my own country, the United States of America. We don't like to say we are a backward country, so let's just say we are suffering from a case of temporary insanity." End quote. Well, the juice may be on the loose in Hollywood. O.J. Simpson reportedly $20,000 richer after agreeing to appear in a new Sacha Baron Cohen movie. And the families of Nicole Simpson and Ron Goldman are furious. That's because Simpson still owes them millions as part of a civil judgment that came after he was acquitted in the two 1994 murders.
Tell Borat to give it to the Goldman family.
Yeah.
They can claw it
See
back.
how this plays out.
You know,
So he's going to be in, it's the next Borat movie? He's going to roll?
I don't think so. Yeah, I think he would.
I just heard OJ's going to be in a movie and he got $20,000. I didn't hear what the name of the movie was.
I don't think we know it yet.
We know it's not going to be Naked Gun 7. I don't think, anyway.
Don't think so.
All right. Thanks, Jillian. Yeah. It's 42 after the hour. Remember the college professor who said this?
You need to get out. You need to get out.
Hey, who wants to help me get this reporter out of here? I need some muscle over here.
Yeah, we remember her. Turns out the biggest threat to free speech on campus is from professors like that. We have the proof coming up.
Plus, the media cannot stop gushing over Kim Jong-un's sister at the Olympics. There she is. Retired Army Ranger Sean Parnell says the coverage makes him sick. He joins us now.
Hey, Sean.